Welcome to a new Amplifiz Podcast episode. I am right here in the LinkedIn headquarter office in Singapore. Thank you so much for the hospitality. Together with Hawkins, who is the founder and CEO of SalesTribe. Very excited to have you. Welcome.
Thanks, mate. Nice to be here. Beautiful, sunny Singapore with us, Marina Bay Sands behind us.
You did arrange a fantastic room. I cannot complain.
We did.
So tell us a bit more about yourself, about your business, and your passion for helping organizations better engage and delight B2B buyers.
Well, listen, look, it's a fascinating topic, right? The amount of change that's now happening in not only sales, but in B2B buying, and salespeople are now having to adapt. I managed to go back and do an MBA in 2012, and it was during that MBA when I went out and spoke to buyers about what they now expect. And, as a long-term salesperson, I got quite a shock because the expectations of modern buyers has changed dramatically from when I first started selling.
Right.
Back in the old days, I used to do what I call interruptive push selling. But of course, buyers don't tolerate that anymore. There's a few things that we have to get our heads around, I think, as business people in 2024 and beyond. And the first thing is that most B2B companies want to do more business with less vendors. Right. They're not looking for new suppliers. They're not looking for new products. They quite often want to be able to rationalize the amount of vendors they deal with. That's the first thing. The second thing, they want partners in their business, not suppliers. They want a long-term relationship with each of their suppliers. So deep selling is now the new, in fact, because we're here at LinkedIn use the term deep selling, and it's the ultimate perfect term, go deep with your buyers. If you truly want a delightful long-term relationship, then you need to go deep. I think, to be honest, I've spent most of my career being a mile wide and an inch deep. What buyers now expect is a deep relationship.
So when we talk about deep relationship, what I imagine this to mean is to have a very profound understanding of their business, their challenges, their organization, and not being a transactional guy, but really being able to articulate a value proposition that will be aligned with their business strategy, their challenges and goals and so on.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
But what about the overall buyers and stakeholders that are involved in B2B purchase?
You look at the new era that we're all working in. You've got product-led growth. You've got everything as a service. Everything's a monthly subscription, right? Mm-hmm. And recurring revenue requires recurring value. Buyers expect recurring value. Don't just sign me up. Make sure I'm getting value every single month. So as a seller or a marketer or a customer success person, pre-sales, I'm now expected to be able to know the business, not just know the business, but know the business better than the customer knows their own business, right? You've got to have that deep relationship to add value constantly, to always be anticipating future needs. Mm-hmm. One of the things buyers said to me when I did the research for my book, well, there are four things they said to me. The first thing they said is that they expect the seller to know them, properly know them. The second thing they said was they expect every engagement personalized to their context. Makes sense. Third thing they said, they expect the seller can teach them something that they can't find themselves, right? So teach me. And then the final one, which was really interesting, is don't just solve my current problem, anticipate my future needs. So take me on the long-term journey and always be adding value. You can't do that unless you've got a deep relationship. Yeah. My colleague John Dausch laughs at me because I'm always talking about the flipped funnel. That's how the funnel used to be, sales and marketing, put all the leads in the top and push it all down. Hopefully something falls out.
Right.
Now it's a flipped funnel.
Okay.
I'm much more selective about who goes in the top, and I'm landing and expanding through the funnel. And that points to, or it leads to, I think, deep selling.
That's very interesting. Practically, how would you help a salesperson, a sales individual to wrap his head around about how it translates for him or her?
Very difficult. Very difficult, right? And I'm a sales guy, right? And the first thing a salesperson does, well, we're wishful thinkers, right? Mm-hmm. And we're always trying to shoehorn a poor fit customer into a solution.
Right.
First thing we have to do is stop thinking about qualifying in and instead qualify out.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there are certain types of customers that are a good fit for your product or solution, right? We call that the ICP, the ideal customer profile. We have to now become almost ruthless in how we qualify. I'm only working with this type of customer.
Right.
And when I'm working with a really good fit customer, and I'm not wasting time with poor fit customers. Salespeople, and I'm guilty of this, I'll try and work with anybody that wants to buy my product because I've got a quota to hit, I've got a commission to make.
Right.
So if we can stop qualifying everything in and be very selective about which types of customers we work with, we're a much better chance, of course, of having a deep relationship. So qualifying, number one.
Right.
There was some research put out by Forbes recently that said that 90% of CROs, Chief Revenue Officers, believe that their team, their sellers, are chasing too many of the wrong types of customers.
Wow.
So that's a common problem. And you know what it's like. When you're working with a poor fit customer, it throws your business into chaos.
Yeah.
The relationship will unravel, they will churn, and it becomes, you know what I mean. So that's the first thing, qualifying. The second thing you have to be really good at now is initiating conversations. Because our biggest challenge, all of us now, is cutting through. How do I start a conversation with a new buyer who no longer wants to meet me in person?
That's right. Yeah.
I used to be able to just pick up the phone and call, but nobody's sitting around waiting by the phone to ring, and no one's got a desk phone anyway, right? So no one's answering the unknown caller and everyone's blocking spam. So how do I start a conversation? Opening is the new closing. So that's the second thing. The third thing is you have to now be able to get across, you alluded to it earlier, this increasingly large cast of characters in the stakeholder group, the buying center.
Right. There's not one person to approach, but many, right? Right.
I think Gartner said 11.6 on average. Forrester may have said 15. I know that the buying center just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So how do you get across as a seller all of those people? Make yourself visible. How do you get their attention? How do you demonstrate that you're credible and trustworthy? These are all big challenges.
What are the success recipe? What is the secret sauce to get in the right direction here?
Well, if you think about the average salesperson who's been allocated a set of accounts, or they've got a territory now and they're being charged with going out and starting new conversations, you have to think about, where does my buyer now reside? I often use that one, I think it was Justin Roth-Marsh that said this. Justin said, field sales was fine when the buyer resided out in the field. So go out into the field, meet the buyer. Where does the buyer now reside? LinkedIn. Most buyers now. So you've got to have that online presence now. I was told week one of my sales career, make sure you show up with your suit and tie and your hair's done and your shoes are clean. Present, a good first impression. Well, now you have to show up online in order to be able to create that visibility and garner that credibility that you need.
Right.
So the first thing is, have an online presence, be seen as a specialist in your industry, because the buyer needs to know that you're dealing with someone who's got two things, empathy and authority. So empathy, I can empathize with my customer. Right. I know their challenges. I know their industry. Yeah. And I'm also an authority in my industry. Yeah. Some of those basics. It's not for the faint-hearted now, and we've talked about this before, but sales and marketing are truly now coming together, because as a seller, now I have to start thinking about, well, how am I creating the visibility? What is my brand awareness strategy? How do I amplify my company's brand? How do I cut through with content strategy? So the two roles are very much coming together, as they should.
Yeah, as they should. And I think it's very always beneficial for an organization anyway to have a strong alignment. But here, beside the organizational alignment, what you're saying is that the sales guys should even become marketeers in their approach of building their own reputation, their own brand, for the purpose of being a credible authority. And
you can't. I mean, there's really only, if you think about it, there's really only two modes that a salesperson can ever be in. They're either servicing demand or they're creating demand. And once upon a time, we would all sit back, me included, we'd all sit back and wait for the marketing guys to generate the leads. Give me the leads and I'll go and sell them. So you can't do that anymore as a seller. You can't just sit and wait for it to happen. You've got to be proactive. You've got to be out there. So you've got to be thinking more like a marketer. How do I get my brand, go back to what we were talking about earlier, how do I get the right message to the right buyer at the right stage of the buying journey, on the right platform, on the right channel?
Like this is exactly what a marketing guy working omni-channel strategy would be focusing on, right?
Once upon a time, it was acceptable for a seller to do what I call generic messaging, blanket messaging, spray and pray. You can't anymore. In order to have those deep selling relationships, you have to make sure you're thinking about buying stage appropriate messaging. And that's more in line with how marketers think.
As you know, I've sat on the sales side and sales leadership side, and also on the customer side.
Yeah.
The last 4 years, I was in charge of digital marketing and MarTech for a large MNC.
Yeah.
So suddenly I was not selling anything to anyone, but I was receiving this message, and it was fascinating for me to see how these guys are doing. And you can really see great stuff or decent stuff, and you can really see.
One of the interviews I did with buyers for my book, one of them said to me, Graham, I haven't got 5 minutes for a coffee with some sales guy who can't tell me something that I can't find myself on Google.
Exactly.
I'm not wasting time. In fact, when you ask a salesperson to explain, and I often do this with our training, I often say, treat me as a customer, right? Tell me why I need to spend 45 minutes with you having a meeting. And quite often the seller will go, oh, because we're the best at our job and we've got the best product, and 3 years from now you'll get this out. No. Forget the relationship. Tell me why I should invest 45 minutes of my time now with you. What's in it for me?
Right.
So, yes, to your point, a seller needs to be seen as a subject matter expert of some sort in order to be able to add value to the buyer. Because buyers are not sitting around waiting to have meetings.
Yeah.
They're busy. You are busy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And if you felt like this was a waste of your time.
But how do you see your customers reacting to this? And also from the sales leadership perspective, because this is always this challenge of making them understand that sometimes this long-term game is really worth it and there's no avoiding it. And when we talk about quota and how many meetings and stuff, we are falling back into this logic of quantity as opposed to quality.
Correct.
So how do you navigate that story when you sell to sales directors, VP sales, CRO, and so on?
It's a real challenge, because there is always that tendency to think that the old more equals more approach. Right. So just do more, right? And you've got all these tech platforms, AI and whatnot now, that are basically enabling the seller to do more and more of what matters less and less. Nod to Brent Adamson for that one. So yeah, we can scale up our email spam now, and we can do more because we've got these tools and platforms. But let's go back to what the buyer wants. To create a raving fan, delighted, happy customer, we have to give them the arms around experience, the white glove experience now. So to do that, you've got to be, deep in that relationship with them.
What we used to do was what we call account-based marketing. It's not actually just a marketing approach, but it's really the idea of having marketing and sales working together at creating content that is not just solution equal benefit kind of thing, but really much more tailored to not only an organization, but sometimes to an individual based on the function he has and so on. So are you guys having these conversations as well with your customers? Is it part of what you guys do?
A lot. Yeah, that's a very important part. Go back to what you said earlier, Guillaume. You've got a buyer who's now down funnel. They've done all of their research. They've looked at, G2, Crowd, Gartner, Magic Quadrant, TripAdvisor, all of it. They've probably selected their preferred vendor before they even speak to you.
Absolutely.
So if you're not visible at the beginning of the buyer journey and you're just coming in late, how can you impact that decision?
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. So quite often sellers are being brought into the decision mix quite late, and they're having to try and challenge the customer to move the goalposts. And, there's been books written about how to do that well, but it's very, very difficult. So create the visibility, be seen at the beginning of the buyer journey, and if you're coming in late, be very aware of qualifying out quickly, because the probability of winning that deal when you're coming in at the purchase stage, incredibly low.
Yeah.
So yes, sales and marketing people have to be completely joined, dovetailed together so that you are visible, you are in the mix early and not coming in late. It won't surprise you when I say that the digital native companies, so the modern companies, particularly the tech companies, they kind of get this thinking. Data-led selling, digital-first selling, they understand buyer intent data, buyer sentiment data, and where to find those signals. And they use those signals and all of that information really, really well in what I call the pre-approach. The really successful salespeople of today spend more time in the pre-approach than they do just making calls or sending emails. And what I mean by that is, we've got a program that we run called Mastering the Initial Engagement. One chance to make a first impression, gather up as much information as you can so that the first words out of your mouth to a new prospective buyer are so radically different to everyone else, the buyer goes, oh, wow, you really do know me.
Yeah.
That's the power of the digital first kind of approach where you're leveraging all of that information.
But this is, and I love it, but this is so far away from the traditional mindset of, oh, you have approached only 5 guys this week instead of 200.
Exactly.
And this is a cultural shift for sales organization and sales leader that is...
It's a massive shift for the old guard, and this goes all the way to the C-suite, right? Just make more calls, do more meetings, close more deals, like more. That does not work. It works in the opposite of deep selling. The deep selling mindset is, I need to get really clear about this. We're getting married, right? I want to go on this long-term journey.
I can edit the video. So if I keep this video, if I want to create the buzz, I'm going to give that announcement.
You and I are not getting married, but you know what I mean. To go on that long-term relationship with the customer, you've got to know them really, really well.
Right.
So yes, I think those old metrics, volume metrics of how many meetings have you got, how many calls have you made, 100 calls equals 3 sales, all that stuff. That's 20th century. We're in the 21st century. It's 2024 now.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So we spend a lot of time working with businesses to change that mindset, skill set, tool set.
Yeah, and these are the 3 dimensions of change management, as you said. Anyway, it's the people, the process, and the tools.
Technology. Yeah.
So these 3 are related. So
that's it. Yeah.
And this is a game changer for those who are able to do it successfully, but also a big hurdle for those who are struggling to wrap their head around it. So for those of you watching, if you want to check out SalesTribe, please do so. Graham Hawkins, obviously, is super active with very valuable content on LinkedIn. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time and
Thanks for
welcoming me to Singapore, to LinkedIn Singapore office.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for having me, sir.
Speak soon.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Good man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon for our next episode of Amplifiz Podcasts. Thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.